Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to add a beautiful stencil to your buttercream cakes. Stencils are really easy to add to your cakes, but there are a few tips and tricks and a little bit of patience required to get them right. Also, if you're new to my channel, then please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. But apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Now, the first thing to keep in mind when adding a stencil to a buttercream cake is the type of buttercream that you're adding your stencil to. So I've tried both stenciling on Swiss meringue buttercream and American buttercream, and I can definitely say that American buttercream is the way to go. And the reason for that is because if you're wanting a nice, kind of really neat stencil that's going to go around your whole cake, then the crusting that forms on an American buttercream is a nice barrier which stops the buttercream from, sticking onto your stencil when you're adding it to your cake. Whereas with a Swiss meringue buttercream, it's really hard to get those really nice, neat stencil patterns without starting to melt the buttercream underneath, which then sometimes starts to stick onto the stencil. So yeah, I just found it a lot harder with Swiss meringue buttercream. Even though, if you're not going for a really neat look around your entire cake and you just want like a section of your cake to have stenciling on it, then that's fine. But today I'm going to be showing you guys how to neatly add the stencil around your whole cake, and I would definitely recommend using an American buttercream for that. Also, you want to make sure that your cake is really nice and cold and that the buttercream is really firm before you go ahead and start adding your stencil to your cake. So my cake's been sitting in the fridge for about an hour, so we are good to go. Now for my stencil today, I've got this really pretty geometric pattern here, and if you're wondering where I got this stencil from, then I will post a link to that below. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to somehow stick your stencil onto your cake so that you can start adding buttercream to the stencil. Now the way that I like to do that is I've just got some pins here, so just make sure that your pins are new because they're going to be going into your cake. Now the first thing you want to do is you just want to hold the stencil up against your cake, and then in the first kind of pattern design there, I'm just going to stick my pin into the buttercream, and I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom of the cake. And then I'm going to quite tightly just push it around the cake and then do the same thing on this side. So now that I've got my stencil stuck to the cake, the next thing is just to fill the stencil with buttercream. So what I've got here today is I've got some more American buttercream, and I'm just going to use that to fill in the stencil. And I'm just applying a really thin layer of buttercream. And then once you've applied that all to your stencil, then the next thing is just to grab your cake scraper and start scraping away the excess buttercream. And you just want to gently do this. And then once you've finished scraping off the excess buttercream, the next thing is just to take off the pins and slowly remove the stencil from the cake. And then you're left with a really beautiful stencil on your cake. Now before I go ahead and continue to add more of the stencil to the cake, I'm going to go ahead and pop this cake into the fridge for about 10 minutes for the buttercream that I just added to the cake to firm up a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and continue to add the stencil to the cake. So our cake is out of the fridge now. The buttercream that we use for our stencil has had some time to harden up, and now we can go ahead and add more of the stencil to our cake. Now I've just cleaned up the stencil, so just make sure that you do clean up your stencil every time you're applying it to your cake. Now what we're going to do next is you'll notice that the edge of the stencil is actually blank, so we can't just, start off where our stencil ended last, otherwise we're going to have a gap in between our designs. So we kind of have to line it up a bit, which is why we want our buttercream to become firmer, because part of the stencil is going to be overlapping some of that buttercream. So if that buttercream's not nice and hard, then the stencil is going to squash it. So that's why we need some time for the buttercream to harden up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to align it so that the stencil continues. And then I'm just going to do the exact same thing and just get some of my pins and pin them into the cake to hold my stencil in place. Okay, and now I'm just going to do the exact same thing, add more buttercream to the stencil, scrape it off, and then take off my stencil. And now I'm just removing my pins again. Alright, and that's more of our stencil done. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing, pop this cake into the fridge, clean up my stencil, and then we'll go ahead and add more of the stencil to the cake. So I've just removed the stencil for the third time, and as you can see we're almost done, but we do still have a little bit left there. So again, I'm just going to pop it into the fridge for another 10 minutes and then we'll be back to finish it off. So now I'm just going to add buttercream to that little part over there. And it's just a really tiny bit to scrape off. And there it is, our stenciling around our cake is all done. Now if you notice that there are any little imperfections anywhere, you can go ahead and clean those up. Now as you can see on my cake, I've got some little holes where I've poked the pins in, so I'm just going to get a small offset spatula and I'm just going to slowly kind of fill those in with the buttercream that's already on the cake. Alright, now I've cleaned up my stencil, and now the last thing to do is just clean the bottom of my cake board and then I'm done. And there it is, our stencil cake is all done. Now you guys can go ahead and continue to decorate this cake however you like, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.